Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is a blessed day, and let me explain to you why it's such a blessed day. Because the universe has a way of listening, and it has a way of manifestation. Let me go deeper than that. The young lady who's appearing on this show today, let me tell you my journey with how this all came to be. I was researching, I wasn't even researching, something about near-death and experiences popped up on one of my feeds. All of a sudden, I started seeing these same episodes or things playing. If I turn on the TV, it was there, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, something intrigued me to watch this particular podcast with this young lady. And I watched it. It was pretty long, but I kept watching. And at the same time, I'm listening. And something said, you need to talk to her. Not so much to have her come on the show, but her journey, maybe been a connection. I have no idea. But long story short, after willing to give up on the search, I go to my inbox and lo and behold, she responded. A tear almost wept in my eye because I was like, this was almost divine intervention. So she reached out to me. We talked, and I remember her saying something also had her to reach out to me. With that said, it just goes to show you that people come into your life for a reason. It's our actions and our attitudes that determine that outcome. I am pleased to have on the show today the one, the only, Virginia Drake. Welcome to the show, Virginia.
Thank you so much. What a kind. That touches my soul because that is exactly how it is. When you have a true connection of the soul, it wasn't anything to do with our flesh. It has nothing to do with us, but our souls knew. And I felt your email intuitively through my soul. And but this is what's happened to me for the last since now 11 weeks.
Right.
Life has been upside down for 11 weeks. For answering one podcast, now you will be the 10th. But I feel like this is why I feel God has asked me to speak openly and honestly the best I can, because my experiences will not be their experiences. My perspective will not be your perspective.
Right.
But in the truth of all of this, there is one thing, and that's love. Now, I don't love you. You don't love me in that sense. We feel each other through the love of ourselves, of our souls. That's a whole different ball game than the romance that we're being fed to feel.
Yeah.
Because you and I feel each other. We've been talking on the phone several times, and you send me flowers every day, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it does. It touches my soul. The colors, you've heard me talk about it. Those are things you're not giving me, because all I did is I called you up or I texted you and I said, you didn't send me any flowers. And you sent it very faithfully. But it was always a little glimmer that opened up and said, oh, I love those colors. Right. And that's who we are, we are the rainbow, but the rainbow through the soul of who we are, not our flesh.
I always tell people, don't give me flowers when I'm dead.
Yes, I have said that in funerals, and I help people cross over.
Yeah.
So I say that to that same thing. I say that to the family. This is the flower you can give. You don't have to go to a flower shop. Look at them with your heart and open up your heart, and that is the bouquet of truth. Isn't that beautiful?
Let's share the viewers a little bit of who Virginia Drake is. Give a little bit of your growing up, your childhood.
Well, to be honest, my growing up was I was born in 1951. I was my mother's 7th miscarriage, and I survived it. I have drowned twice. I have drowned. I mean, I've had 2 strokes, 2 heart attacks. I've gone through a massive amount of energy, consciousness, untruths, lies. I'm just like everybody else. I had to go through the same steps, the processing to get myself released from this world. I call it the world of man.
Mm-hmm.
And see the grace of God in every one of those events in my life and how it meant to be where I am this day, this moment.
Was your parents, did you grow up in a house that was full of religion, full of spirituality? What was it like growing
No,
up for you?
my mom and dad were not religious. I was the one that went to church to hand out the offering. And I even asked one time, I said, why do you all not go with me? And they said, because we don't want to.
Really?
Now, my father was Methodist, okay? My mother was Baptist. Now, but there wasn't any. I went to church. They made me go to the Baptist church every Sunday, and I did the offering. I went to summer vacation, with all of that. I followed all the rules, but I'm from a very small town, so the rules are the rules. And if everybody don't understand, every town, every city has invisible rules, and you better know how those rules follow. Even though they're not written on like Constitution or this is our town, you knew exactly where to not cross the line.
Right.
So it was very staunch. It was very narrow-roaded kind of thing. But when I say narrow road, I mean, it was like this. It was very narrow thoughts. And
what do you mean when you say narrow thoughts, Virginia? Like what part of the Tennessee, Kentucky area or did you grow up in?
I'm in right outside of Lexington, Kentucky.
What do you mean when you say narrow? Because I don't think individuals know what that would mean.
Okay. Well, narrow to me is you have to follow the rule. Like I couldn't bring in a Black person in my house, even though my parents said that she wasn't prejudiced. But yet you don't bring a Black person there because that's an invisible rule. Okay. So when I'm talking about this is Southern thinking, this is, my mother was not. I mean, we had people that worked for us all the time. In fact, Happy Chandler, which is our governor, and we've had 5 governors in my county.
Right.
But that should tell you something. We were powerful. This town is very powerful, very rich. But there were rules for the poor, there were rules for the middle, and there's the rules for the high, the higher consciousness, or not consciousness, but society. So you learned how to follow in those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't go past them. Now I remember I crossed the boundary when I became a Catholic versus from the Baptist church. And the only reason why I did that, when I was 11 years old, my father got melanoma. And at that time in the 60s, nobody knew anything about melanoma, and they didn't know a lot about cancer. So they were very afraid of cancer.
Right.
And I remember my father, when he was in the process of dying, and he died in 1968, my mother was trying to find ministers to come and talk to my father, because he was starting to feel that it was time for him to get really clear with himself about who he was.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, for my father at that time, he just wanted to make sure he got everything clear so he'd go to heaven. That, if he'd done something, if he needed to look at something with himself, because when you're going through cancer and through death, everybody goes, he wasn't afraid. He was a War II veteran, but he wanted someone to give him insight to what he was getting ready to look into. And so my mother called several ministers, and they wouldn't come because they were afraid of cancer.
Oh, yeah, because they wasn't educated on it at that time.
Yeah, well, back then in the 60s, they were terrified of cancer. So when the guy that she found was a priest, a young priest in the Catholic Church, and he came every Saturday after his church and would come and give my father the serving of, the host. And he would sit dinner with us every Saturday until he died. And this is where a little girl said, you know what? those other ministers, they were afraid. I wanted to follow this guy. This is the guy that is not afraid to die. He's not afraid. He knows who he is. And I mean, he said things. This young priest said to us that he said, I think priests should get married. And let me tell you, back then in the 68, or yeah, about that time, he got fired from that. He got released because he said it to us. So that's where you have to look at where I'm at that time. But my father he got a peace. And I remember he was telling me before he went into the veteran, administration or the hospital, he looked at me and he said, Jenny, hell is here on earth.
He said, wait, tell that again, because I don't think they heard you.
He said, Jenny, hell is here on earth. Because I watched my father go through the process of dying. I saw him say, I'm going to beat it. I saw him walk all through my neighborhood, knocking on the doors and telling everybody, you need to stop praying for me. I'm going to live. I mean, and this is a man, and he was a big man. Okay. That was before he went into the hospital. Mm-hmm. And he was telling everybody, I'm going to get it. I'm going to be fine. Well, when he wasn't, it took him 5 years to die, because what they did is my father had a bill at Central Baptist in the Lexington area at that time, $100,000 bill. Now in 68, let me tell you, my father was worried. That's why I say my father's a hero. And I'll tell you what, my father we didn't have that kind of money. We live in a very small house. I live in a 900 square foot house. This is where I was raised since I was 8 years old. And I'm really here now. And my father was terrified because we were going to lose everything. We're going to lose the house. We're going to lose the car if we couldn't pay that bill. So the University of Kentucky came over and announced to my father if he would let them experiment with him, melanoma, they would take care of the bill. My father was a hero. What they did to him, no child should ever see their father see, ever. I saw them cut his head out in the back, took his eye out and the palate of his mouth, and my mother then left him to come back to our house, and I had to take care of him. I was 12 or 13 years old then, and had to take everything up in his nose. I mean, I was traumatized. I was traumatized watching what went on. And my mother had to go back to work. This was traumatizing. Now, even though that is such a horrible memory, when I crossed over for my first near-death experience that I remembered in 1998, there was a moment that I had seen Jesus when I was 16, when my father and my best friend were dying at the same time. Mm. I went into the Catholic church and it was lit up. And back then the church was wide open. And nobody was in there with me. It was just lit up with the shadows of, the church. And I am just begging. I'm begging God to save them. Please save them, as a 16-year-old would beg God. And at that moment, Jesus Christ fell off. Well, he dropped off of that cross. And now everybody asked me and said, did you see him? I said, I saw his shadow, and I heard him when he hit, but I heard him when he walked down to the pew. Now he didn't come straight to my pew. He went all the way around and went to the very end of that pew and scooted in, just like anybody that's been in church and you've got a pew, you got to push over, push over, push over. I could feel everything that he did, and then he hit me like you would, and he put his arm around me and said, I've already taken care of that. So as a 16-year-old, I just knew they're going to live. They're going to be miraculously healed. The prayers work. And needless to say, both of them died. And Gail died before my father. And I watched my father sit in my living room crying because she was only 15 years old. And he thought to me, he said, why wasn't it me? Why didn't I die first? He's calling God out. He's really pissed at God. And I'm witnessing it. So these are the traumas that you go through, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, Andre. It's always a light in the end of the tunnel, because what we only see is through our flesh and through our perspective and through the lies that are here. But what I got to see is when Jesus came back to me after I had my near-death experience. He came back to me after I went to my house, after it was over, and he stayed with me for 18 months and gave me that information.
Wow.
He said to me, you didn't understand because you were a child. Now, let me tell you, that little girl lost her faith in God that day when they both died. I lost my faith. I did not believe in God. So I got to go to college in hell. I did everything. I had sex. I had drugs. I did everything because I didn't believe in God anymore. And that's why I ended up meeting my husband, because we were all screwed up. He had been hit, there was so much that I just allowed in that was darkness beyond. And, thinking I'm riding the right ride because we did make money. Oh, we did very successfully. We had a lot of money. We had several businesses, during this process. But the thing is I didn't know what the trouble was about until I had, in 1998, I had amazing near-death experience that took me to a different level of God that I'd never experienced before. And that's when Jesus, like I said, came to my house for 18 months. And the first thing he did is he took me and he said, I want to show you something of what I said to you at that moment. I said, I took care of it. And it's almost like he flew me over into the hospital room where Gail, my best friend, was at the time, dying. And I saw her family. They were all just, because she's in a coma. She'd had a car accident. And he and I were looking, and we were kind of looking over. And I'll tell you exactly, I took kids many years to DC. And when you walk into the Capitol, you see all of the figures of George Washington and all the angels, and they're looking down. That's exactly what it felt like. I was looking down with all the angels at what I was looking at. And I looked, and Jesus looked at me and said, I did take care of it. If I had followed your truth or what you wanted me to do, they would have been in prison with their daughter. She needed to go. She was ready to go home. They needed to live so they could reflect on what had happened here.
When you say prison, what do you mean they would be in prison?
When being in prison is when you have to sit at a hospital watching for your daughter to die. She was in a coma. That's prison. You're connected to that hospital room. I lived it. I know what it means like when my daddy was in the veterans hospital or in the nursing home. You are imprisoned by that because you're chained to that thought, to that fear, to that death. So you are in prison. You're in prison with your mind. You're in prison with your body. You're in prison with everything in your beingness.
So Virginia, did you got the insight at that moment, and you got to see your friends, and you had
yes,
see the near-death experience with
but then I saw that Jesus really meant that. He said, I fixed that. He did fix it. He fixed it on a level of higher consciousness that I would never seen.
Were they ready to go as far as what? Were your father and your friend, were they ready to go?
I don't know. They had to, because they were both into a state of mind that their bodies would never come back. Now that I work with people when I cross over, and I can give you an incident. One of my students, he got into a drug addiction. He was, I taught him at the 6th, 7th, and 8th. But when he was 19 years old, he got into a drug. I guess he got too much, whatever he was taking. And he was in an emergency room and he was shutting down. He was going to die. And he came to me. Ben came to me because I was kneeling down because we heard that Ben was in the hospital ready to die. And I just bent down and I said, Ben, if you can find me, find me. And he did. He was right there. He said, and now what he's going to call me, he's going to call me what the teacher, he met me. I'm a different name now. I was Mrs. Snip. And he said, I think I'm dying. I said, go in and check. Now, when you're talking to somebody in this consciousness up here, It's not the same. It's like, choop, choop, you're over.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back real fast and he said, I'm shutting down. My kidneys are bad, everything. I said, well, then there's not anything else we can do. Is I'm going to help you get over. And he said, can you do that? And I said, yes, I can. But I always take them to an oak tree first. So they'll remember the fresh mowed grass, a creek, where everything comes in real peaceful. And I wait with him with their soul. I'm not talking about his flesh. His flesh is at the ER trying to, let go.
Right.
And I said to him, I said, your family's in. And he saw his grandmother. He saw his grandfather. He saw his dog. And he looked at me and he said, what do I do? And I said, you're going to go with them. And I walked over to, there's a line that I have. I cannot cross that line, because if I cross that line, I'm out. I'm going to go right there with them. So as he went over, they always turn around when I'm working with them and they go like that, like, oh. And I said, just be still and just take your lessons and you'll be fine. And he just turns off and goes. That's what I had to go through, all of this process with my best friend and my father, and watch it, because this is what Jesus said. He said, you've been trained to see how death is the most horrible place, but you're going to teach people and show people and give them truth about death is just a new beginning.
Why is death such a horrible place, Virginia, in your mind?
Because the way first of all, and I'm going to just get straight with you, this is a death cult here. Go and look at anything in the United States. It's all about memorializing. It's all about death. It is not about living. It's about death. Go to DC. All of it's moralized by death. They're death cult. And when you've got a death cult, that's all they want, is to people die, because we're in a recycling system. The more they can get us out, the more they can bring us in. And I'm telling you, it is a horrible, horrible thing. If we don't start waking up, we're going to get caught back in again.
When you say recycling system, I try to explain this to several individuals, and I think me and you talked about this too. Some people, let me rephrase it. I'm gonna rephrase it like I was explaining to you. When you start to develop consciousness and getting out of what I call a enslavement of the mind.
Yes.
It's hard for people to understand that terminology when you say recycle and energy, people still today don't understand that we are light, and
yes.
There's a dark and there's a light part of us. But when you say recycling, help the individuals understand exactly what that means in simple. Let me go back real quick so people can understand who you actually are. You are a scientist. So you're just not some country girl from, Lexington talking shit.
No.
You have a degree in science.
And I have a graduate degree as well. So I'm educated.
Right.
But I was educated to this on a higher consciousness of the supernatural. I got to see it. When I say recycle, when they're recycling something, you're bringing it in something different. It just look at recycling, what they say here. They say you're going to get everything recycled. Well, you're going to put a piece in that looks like a milk carton, and what happens when it comes back? It's cardboard. So this is going to be the same kind of thing. You're going to be reprocessed in through a different body, through a different flesh, through, a new perspective. It's everything drops out here and you start all over every time. That's called the remembrance moment. They want your memory to be wiped out. And when I say they is this. These are people that have been in the consciousness for a long, long time. They've been around for a long, long time. I don't know if you want to call them aliens, archangels. I don't know what you want to call them, but they're not nice. They are here to create the control that they want. If you go back to the United States, if people would just go in, Andre, and listen and start doing their research. I've been researching this for 26 years, and I was horrified what I was seeing, because as a teacher, I started seeing how I've been lying to my students because I didn't know the truth. I thought those books were real. I think the one that I remember the most is I was looking at a new history book that had not been published yet. That's what we were looking at. I opened it up, and they already had Obama as the president. That hadn't even taken place. Now, I said, I stopped everybody. We were in a big meeting of teachers. I said, I'm going to stop right there. Come on, everybody. See, I was the bad guy that came in all the time because I'm the one that's always questioning everything.
Right.
I am the rule breaker because I broke the rules a long time ago, watching my father, watching God, watching all of that. Okay. I had a different perspective already on it. And I knew there was lies going on because I had been seeing the lies already.
When you say go through the cycle, what's the purpose of us going back to the cycle? What are we missing when we go through the cycles? Me and you shared this, and I thought it was the karma that we create on earth. If we don't rectify that karma, then we go, is this the part where we go back through the tunnel? And more importantly, do we have free will before we get to that to say, look, I don't want to go back. I want to go somewhere else. I want to turn around and see, maybe is there a universe? What is it?
You got to go back to your Bible, Andre. Go back to Genesis. And they're talking about the firmament. First of all, we've been lied to all the way that the earth is this way. It's a globe. It is not. It's a flat earth. It's flat. Everything here is flat anyway, because I see everything is flat. Our words are flat. Our language is flat. Everything has been trained to us on a different level. Because if you really want to know the truth, we were never supposed to be coming in here for a body. The body is what slows us all down because it's energy. So it's a lower frequency that our soul walks into that has to be released through all of it's not karma, really. I used to be upset about that word karma. Like what I had to look at is I had to look at that I didn't listen to God, to the higher consciousness. I listened to the world of man. I fell down. This is why I feel we fell down here to learn how to be back up with God. And you have to go through some of these energetic, lower, points, but to look at it and really experience it in a different way, see the blessing in it. And I've heard it in the Bible. This is a blessing. Look at Job. It was a blessing. How can you say that was a blessing? Well, when you're in the higher consciousness, if you go read the Bible, everything is going to be in a higher consciousness, but it's going to show you the lower frequency.
So why do we have such a hard time elevating?
Because we've never been told this. We pretty much go to church. You're going to go to hell if you think anything bad. You better follow this fine line, or you will be taken out by God, or this man that they call God looks like a man will be mean to you. Just like a father that you have with a human father. The guy that I met would never, oh my God, would never, ever hurt us. We're his, and it's not a he, it's light. It's not a female, it's not a male, it's not an image that, like they said, you are the image of God. Well, how you told about God is Jesus looks like a man. Well, because he came here. But if Jesus is God, so what was God looking like? Just like Jesus? No. Total light, intelligence beyond, and a energy of love that you will never experience here because it's so, the frequency and the love of it is overwhelming of your whole beingness. Your body would not be able to take that, because when I first came back, people would want me to talk about God, and I couldn't talk to them because the frequency was so high that I couldn't get it through my throat until about 6 or 7 years later. One day, God said, you can speak to me now. Speak about me now.
This is a question I asked you a while back. And when me and you talk, we get to talking.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious. I'm probably like you, just curious. If I had the opportunity, which we've all had the opportunity, because we talked about we've been here before, but we don't remember because the DNA is wiped away. But we all had that moment. We all created our lives when we were there. Explain that a little bit so people can understand. I think I shared it with you. I believe that we've all been there. We've all met the creator. We basically picked our lives. We picked people to come into our lives. But when we go through that portal, we read the transcripts. We read the agreement, the contract while we're there. All of a sudden we go through this tunnel and we don't remember jack crap, but a little bit of deja vu. But my question here is, why is it so difficult? Like if the creator wants us, he can snap his finger. I remember sharing this with you. Snap his finger, make everything perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Why allow this? Why allow us to be in a petri dish and see this instead of saying enough? Enough.
I agree with what you're saying because God is already present here. We haven't recognized him. That's what it is. Because of this not understanding, people do not understand what really God is. God lies within each and every one of us through spirit, through the light. We have not been introduced to the light. We've heard about the light. We're told about the light, but we don't realize through breath work and grounding, you become light. So the more you understand about becoming light, that opens up all the portals for you to see the truth all the way here. So you can walk right out of it anyway. I can go in and out anytime I want to, but I'm here because it's exactly what I came here to do is finish it out. Finish out the truth, tell my truth, tell people that it's time to wake up and really, because I remember this very well. I was in an Indian reservation. I spoke there 2012, I think. And there was a guy in there and he starts telling the same story that I'm going to tell you. And I knew exactly who he was. We were all standing, hundreds and billions of us souls, looking down to come back and really coming back. And they were saying, and there was a lot of talk. Who's going to wake us up? What are we going to do if we get down there? We're going to be stuck in there, and we don't want to be stuck in there because, and I mean, you could feel it. It was a lot of chatter, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And I raised my hand and said, I will. Do you know there was another voice at that same eternal moment? He said the same thing, but it was an eternal, it was way, way out. He said, I will. I met that man who said that in an Indian reservation, him telling the same story, I was telling the same story, and this one woman heard us both speak about the same story. She found me and found him, and when I met him or when I saw him come, I knew him by his energy, and he knew mine, and we grasped around each other because we knew this is what we came here to do.
It almost sounds like the movie that Disney came out with called Soul. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. And it's funny, Virginia, I didn't want to watch it for some reason. And after I watched it 3 to 4 times, I was like, man, this is a deep message. Your life was exactly that, but the one light didn't want to go. She was scared to go. When you mentioned something that was profound. You said you've been here before.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been here before, but you remember the different journeys of your life. Can you share that, or you don't want to share it?
No, I've been telling everything anyway. So this is what I saw there. I've had glimpses. I would have been in a very deep meditation. Now, my meditation, if people really want to go to my website, they need to go and look at those 2 videos, how to take that breath work in and how to ground. Because if you want to be like me, you got to do the inner work. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what I did is I was in a deep, because I used to meditate 16, 17, 18 hours a day, just being inside of myself and allowing whatever this is in here that I need to address with organs, the body, the soul. I was in my own universe right here. And that's what it is. You're a universe. You're a universe. We're all universes that's created the big universe. That's how God got created, is through our understandings and intention. That's why things have gotten out of balance. but the one I remember, this is when I was a little girl. I was 16 years old. And my dad had already died. My dad died July the 4th. And I was in a beauty contest. And he would have been very proud of me for being there. It was for Miss Woodford County, my county, and that was a big deal. You know, everybody in the world comes to see the fair. And the week before, I gotten really sick before I go. But I always used to do that because I was on several beauty contests. And so you kind of get sick so you can lose that weight so you don't look so bad in a bathing suit or whatever. And so I remember I was sick and I was watching the TV and I was listening to like a quiz show or something like that. And this guy said, if you have one wish in the world, what would you wish? Now I was thinking, that's pretty cool. And he went, for 1,000 other wishes. I went, that's excellent. My God, that's so good. You could just keep on giving, and then at the very end, start all over. Right. I thought that was great. Well, when I was in this beauty contest, the narrator, which was the superintendent of our school, but he knew me because he was also a high school teacher. So I was up there and he said, he gave me, and when he was, I mean, we were like on a stage, you know, and we were in the back with the curtain. And I hear the question. He said, the girls are going up and he said, if you have one wish, what would you wish? I thought, you got to be kidding. Wow. I mean, there was 3 other girls in there with me. I said, oh my God. And I felt almost like I cheated. Right. Because how in the world did I know that? Right. So I walk in and my mother and all of them, you know, it's in the 60s. That's a big deal. I guess also to see a girl. Well, it doesn't matter. So I'm sitting there and he asked me the question and I turned around because I knew exactly what I was going to say. I said, I would ask for 1,000 more wishes. He went, whoa, you can feel the wave. And my mother is so proud. You could say, oh my God, that's my child. You know, you can feel the road. And then, okay, we go back and then we got another one coming in. And this one is living or dead. Who would you like to have been? Now I'm sitting and all these girls are standing, we're all going, well, and you always know the first one that's going in because we're all we don't know what they're going to say, but then the first one, you can hear it. So I thought, I was thinking about it. And all of a sudden a voice says, Joan. I thought, Joan? Who's Joan? Joan of Arc. I said, whoa, wait a minute. Oh, what is that about? And this is why I knew something was different because it was very clear. And I thought, Joan of Arc. Now they're all saying, and you got to understand what the times are. Jackie Kennedy, you know, it would be a movie star. It'll be something, but most of the time it was Jackie Kennedy. I want to be Jackie Kennedy. No, not me. I remember I come in and my mother is so proud, you know, already. And I remember Mr. Overstreet says, and Jenny, what would you like to be? I said, Joan of Arc. And he went, it was a gasp. It was really a gasp. He was gasping. He thought, what? And he said, why did you say that, Jenny? I said, because she died with what she believed in. And that came right out of my mouth, and I didn't say it. It came out of my mouth. And now, I did not win. I think I came in the second runner-up or something like that. Now, I remember getting in the car with my mother, and she said, oh, you did so well. Why did you say Joan of Arc? Joan of Arc, Jenny, Joan of Arc. I just kept saying, why? You know, I couldn't understand it. I didn't know what to. She said, oh, no, everybody else said something, but my daughter said, you know, she went off on it. I mean, she thought, what's the matter with you? Well, when I became.
Did your mom know who Joan of Arc was?
Oh, yeah, she knew what it was. Okay. She thought, what a crazy person, though, somebody dying what they believe in. I mean, right. She was a rebel. Okay. You know, my mother didn't see a lot of things the way I did at the time. Okay. But I remember when I became a Catholic, you know who my saint was? They gave it to me. Saint Joan of Arc. Wow. And I knew then that's why she's my saint. And I had several adventures with her in my mind. I taught about her. because I knew. But this is what I learned from God about Joan of Arc. I was with a bunch of, I mean, I was with a couple who came in. Now you got to understand, I've been doing this business, this business for 25 years. And I had a couple who came in and I was working with them. And all of a sudden I fell down and I was in the kitchen with them. We were taking a break and I had made some cheese or something, but I fell to my knees and I started looking up and they sat and witnessed it. And I looked, oh my God, I did it wrong. I did it. And so after that, it was like a channeling or whatever you want to see it. And I turned around to them. I said, oh my God, I lied. And they said, you lied about what? And I said, I did. And lying is not the right word. It was, I didn't follow what God had asked me. When I went to the king to tell him to do the battle, because that's what the whole thing was about. We killed a lot of people because that was the French and the British. And I went to the king and told him that he was going to have to fight the other king. And God said to me, oh no, that's not the way I ask you. I ask you not to give fear. I asked you to go to the king and forgive, but you didn't hear me. And I remember I walked out of that war and I was devastated to see what I had created by not following the word of God. I followed the world of fear. And I knew that I had created a very bad situation, disastrously, in the history of our world. Mm-hmm. And I immediately went back into prayer and I asked God, please forgive me. And if I ever get another chance to serve you, please make sure I don't miss it. And that's how it started.
What was another moment of your life that you remember?
Alanis. I remember I was a great healer. And if anybody knows anything about Alanis, we were the masculine in, and then you had the Marian, the other group that was feminist. But there was always a battle, and there should never be a battle in the world of God. That's still going back into the world of man. And what I saw was I had a huge amethyst. And I could take that amethyst and run energy through it and laser it, and I could tear up the world if I wanted to, and that's what I did. I destroyed it with the power of that, from knowing that. And that's when I asked God, when I crossed over and came back and I started doing this work, I said, please don't give me any power because I don't know how to use it properly here. And so I didn't.
So
that's you'll see.
The city of Atlantis actually exists.
Yes. Well, all you have to do is
why do you think it crumbled?
Well, all you have to do is go and find all the star forts. Start doing your research. Go look at the ley lines, everything, every church, every star, and it's called Star Forts. I've been to many places, but I can also travel in my mind and I can go. I'm a remote viewer as well. So I can go anywhere I want to. That's how I can go under the tunnels. I can see. That's why I can see flat. I can see the tunnels. I can see everything. If you really understand how this works, you can be a remote viewer. I'm a remote viewer. I taught myself how. I also did hypnotizing. That's what I did. Is I was curious. I wanted to learn, but I wanted to learn on the higher consciousness of God, not on the lower consciousness through power.
When we come back you came back through the port. Let's just call it the light. You came back through the light.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we afraid to die? People say it's because the unknown. What do you think it is?
Oh, yeah. The first thing we don't think about the dying part. We want to see how we're going to die. Is it going to be horrible? We're so afraid that we're going to die in a car accident. Well, I've been in 5 car accidents and I came almost very close to dying, but I never felt one thing. It was in a different state of mind. Everything was real slow motion. And if anybody has had a tragedy or anything, they go into slow motion. That's why the soul has left the body and is coming back in. And I've seen that 5 different times with 5 different car accidents. And I remember it. Well, when I was in a drowning, I remember that everything slows down. You don't have time when you're going out of your body at all. There's no time, but everything slows down. But why it slows down, it really is very fast because it's quantum. That's what quantum light is. It's real fast, but you slow down through that energy. I mean, everything is quantum. Everything is light. Now, there is dark and light, but God, go back to the Bible. God is all. So when you see the darkness, how you use that perspective and what you've been trained and what you've witnessed. I witnessed my father dying, my best friend. So what kind of death do you think I had already planned for myself? Just from what, if you've had a person that did not have a good death or something horrible that happened to them, you have a death wish of fear. You've created it right there. You did. That doesn't mean that's going to happen to you, but that's living in the past. That's why I said we have got to learn to live in the now, the moment. That doesn't exist. That did not happen to you. You were a witness to it, but how you witness it and how you will process that, either fear or love, one or the other. I've seen both. I've seen it through fear, death, fear, hell, all of it. But I've also experienced the heaven of it. That is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life, because you don't die. You see the most amazing experience through that. But if we look back out of fear, that's why you come back.
Do we have to come back?
I didn't have to come back. I was told when I came back out, and that would have been at that time, that would have been 1, 2, 3, that would have been 4 near-death experience at that time. And the other ones didn't remember it until later. No, they said, you don't have to go back if you don't want to. And what I said, because at that time I wanted to help my family, my personal family. I said, no, I want to go back to help my family. Well, what was so funny, it took 5 years. This is why Jesus came to see me. I was under domestic violence in that 5 years because my family wanted me to shut up. They wanted to, and first of all, you cannot blame them. I look pretty crazy, Andre. I was talking to the grass. I was talking to the birds. I was talking to everything. I was seeing experiences way beyond everybody else. I remember the earth called me in and said, go get a quilt. And everybody was going to church because I was Catholic. I was a Catholic educator. And we were going to church. And I said, no, I'm not going to church. God asked me to go out to the field. I'm going to take a quilt. And I remember they rode down watching me. And I just waved and I laid down and had the most powerful experience by the earth. She showed me how to breathe through her to really see what the real truth is. It's all one. It's all one.
When you decide, I know this is hypothetical.
Yeah.
When you and the only reason why I'm sharing this, because we talked about another person that I had on the show. I won't give her name out, but you got to watch the episode. But she said something that was really profound. I shared that with you. She was almost like the movie with the movie I just said. They were all sitting there in light, and they're looking down at the light on, because you don't see human flesh. You see either pure light, darkness, or a combination of both. If you decide not to, is the realm, the higher realm or higher universe, higher vibration, is that schooling?
Yes.
If we decide, so if we want to continue to stay in school before we venture in,
yeah,
how much of that information do we remember coming back into this realm, this vibration, to make a difference, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, they have glimpses. Everybody, I don't care, anybody on your program, they've all had glimpses. They've had something that either profoundly touched them or something they had remembered, but they don't have the understanding and the connections. That's why I said you've got to go all the way to the very end, to the very thought. And then you have to track that thought to find out, and you bring it back in. It's like, connecting dots. You might get one, but then you have to go back to check that and see. it's a profound, it's what the work I do is profound, because you have to go in, and I checked everything. I went back all the way from my mother's womb, because I kept saying, why did my mother and I never get along, even though she was the only thing I had after my father died. But I felt like she was always holding me back. Now I see a lot of kids, because I work with kids too. And I have to go through, because you think, why do these kids hate their parents? Why did my family hate me? My boys hated me at one point. And I could think, what did I do? I didn't burn them. I didn't kill them. But this is because of the many layers of generation to generation to generation. We're into the 70th generations. It's right in the Bible. So these people from the 70th generation has lost God. Totally, almost. Look at it. Look at the Babylonian thoughts. Look at everything that they're doing right now. So this is where we were. We were back here in the 60s. Look what's happened up here. So we've got to understand, we've been layered out, layered from generation to generation to generation to look how it all changes when there's the love of the mom and dad is not there. Then you've got parents that are just divorcing. It's chaos. And that's what the world of chaos wanted us to live in. Because how could you ever understand Spirit of God if you're living in chaos all the time? You can't think. You can't even fathom. That's why you have to still your mind and empty everything. That's when you understand, oh, there's that glimpse. Oh, I remember that. Because we've been so cluttered with information. Look at how much devices we're on. That's electrical. You shoot off 2.5 billion of currents of electricity every day. Where are you going to ground that? Everywhere. This is why people get angry, just off of the flesh, just go crazy. You're seeing that more in the last three or 4 years I've ever seen.
Why isn't the church? It's so funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, and basically telling them a little bit about Universal. My thing, and they was like, I can't talk to you no more because you don't believe the way I believe.
Yep.
And I was like, what do you mean? Well, I go by what the church says. Mm-hmm. I don't argue. I mean, like it's free will. Mm-hmm. Well, what's your take on that? I mean, you got individuals that are literally going to church trying to understand the universal connection, the mm-hmm. different realms of life, manifestation, the whole 9 yards. Why isn't the church telling what's really going on?
Because they don't know what I know. I have a friend that I went to high school with, and I was very dear. I really liked him. And I mean, we were good friends. He's a minister. And when I called him to tell him what had happened to me, he didn't want to hear it.
What do you mean?
He didn't want to talk to me about it. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe that Jesus came to me. He didn't believe any of that. He said, I don't want to talk about it, Jenny. In fact, this town, I was really shunned in my town. I mean, we were all laughing about this the other day. Yeah, I was shunned because, I was very highly respected here. I was a, community person. I was a country clubber. I mean, I had all of the good stuff. And then when I started acting like I was crazy, and that's what they said, oh, she had that heart attack. So she didn't have a lot of oxygen in her brain at one time. So that's why she acts the way she does. You talking about doesn't hurt me? That destroyed me, because these are some of the people that I've known all my life. But now I've been doing it for 25 years. All of a sudden, I have a lot of people who call me because now they know some of the things that happen is true. And they've been a witness to some of the things that I've been working. I worked with a woman in this town, but she was in Lexington in the hospital, and she was healed. She was dying. And I got a phone call. Went into the hospital, because at that hospital, I'm called the angel of death. Now, the angel of death is not a bad thing. If you ever saw the movie, what was it, Joe Black?
Yeah.
Remember? He was a death. Well, and you remember how— I
don't understand that movie yet, so don't tell me all of it. Well, I watched it twice, and I still can't
Well,
Understand.
because you're only seeing it through the eye. Look at the real, he's he's explaining everything. There was no fear of dying at all.
So are we talking about Brad Pitt or are we talking about Anthony Hopkins?
I'm talking about the whole thing. You got to
Okay.
look at all of it in the totality, because what they do with film, they want you to see only in sections.
Okay.
So you need to go back to the front, go back to the back, and kind of feel it in.
Okay.
How I learned about the filming is there's agendas. So the 3 years that I was on the pandemic, I went over to every movie I could find from the age of 11, because that's when I first went to the theaters. And we had a little theater, and I went there every weekend because my father only came in on the weekends. So my mother and my father had to get together. They had to talk, whatever they had to do, but they took me there for the weekend. So I saw things I should never have seen. But you know what? I had all of the ones that I needed. I went back and I said, okay, I'm going to go back and look at all this, because some of the things I should never have seen as 11-year-old. And one of them's Lolita. Remember Lolita?
Yeah.
And that's what was the plane that Epstein did, Lolita.
Wow.
It's all right there, Andre. It's right there in their face. They're telling you right through every movie.
Well, my favorite movie and my buddies trip off of this is What Dreams May Come.
Oh, absolutely.
I was like, oh
I
my
didn't know what
God.
that movie was about until I woke up.
Yeah, I was like, wow. And even the metaverse, I'm like, wow. Even the Matrix, I'm like, they're putting the information out there. We just have to learn to decipher it.
Well, no, because this is how they got to do it. They've got to. The law of the universe is this: you can't hold back anything. You can't, because then you would gain, if you want to call it karma, you will have to face the higher consciousness of God, because you're not doing the right thing here. So what did they do? They got to tell you. So what did they do? They tell you through a movie. And what do you think? Oh, that's just fantasy. No, it is not. And what you do, I don't look at movies too much like I used to. Well, in fact, I know I don't, but I go and find the writers. The writers are the Freemasons, are the ones that are Jesuits. And if you want to know, every Christmas song that was written was all Jews. Wonder why the Jews wrote all of the big Christmas songs.
Never thought about it.
Oh, I've done the research. I knew something was not right. So you've got to start looking beyond that image here. Look back. What did they really, what's the agenda of this? When I go look at a movie, I go, what's the agenda in it? Because I've got every one of these systems in our streams in there. And I go and I find that, and I'll say, and sometimes I'd be on meditation and say, you need to go to this movie. And I know there's something in there, or you need to go to this book. You need to look at it. And I have gotten books before that's expensive, and all I needed to get out of it was one sentence.
What do you think the agenda is?
To keep us confused, chaos, fear. As long as they can keep us in fear, they run us. And you talk about slavery, when I hear them talking about slavery, about, the blacks and all that, you know what? We're all slaves here. Everybody's been slaved. Everybody. Now we can all say this person got enslaved and this one did, but we're all in this boat together. And if we all don't stop these chains of our minds and our souls, I'm telling you, they know, because they're really pushing now. When all the vaccines came in, I screamed to the highest. Nobody wanted to hear me. I'd done the research. I knew exactly what they were doing. But I get that because that's how God said. I knew immediately. He said, do not buy into this.
How much resistance do you get from people?
At the very beginning,
Yeah.
every day, every moment, I've had people spit on me. I've had people slap me. I've told people that I was wrong. I've had ministers in here begging me to stop talking. Mm-hmm. I've had since I've had that video that came out with 676,000 people, and others now with you and everybody else, I've had emails, threatening emails to stop. So that tells me exactly I must be causing a lot of frequency. Because when I had that first video, I felt the frequency coming out. It wasn't about what I said. I've been saying this for over since 2001. And
People
there
don't
it's
understand what that means, frequency.
I know, because they don't understand energy. Now, let me tell you, this is what I've been seeing now, because at the very beginning, I was teaching energy out of your hands. I was teaching people looking for their aura or their electromagnetic field. I went to colleges to tell them, do you not understand what's going on? The college that I went to, my graduate college, that's a private college. I went in and addressed the psychologist with this. You know what they said to me? They got up and walked out of the room. There was 12 of them. And walked out, left two girls who brought me in because I showed them what was going on, and they felt like fools.
Wow.
That's doctors are now, since I've been on this video and all of this is, I've had more chiropractors, doctors contacting me, people wanting to know because they know it's not working anymore. How can somebody like me have all these different experiences, like 2 heart attacks, 2 strokes, and I didn't go to a hospital to do the strokes. I did it myself because I'm dyslexic. I knew how to flip it. So I knew how to do all of this because it's all about polarity anyway. You've got to learn how to cross the lines, how to use the energy in your body. It's there. I teach this, Andre. I teach this. And yesterday I had the most profound experience because most people can't see me energetically. Yesterday, there was a man that has never seen me. He's from Canada. And we were doing the work and he just closed his eyes. He said, "Oh my God, you're beautiful." And I thought, he said, "I don't want to offend you." Because I knew he wasn't seeing me. He said, "You're a goddess." I said, "No, this is how we all look." He said, "This is beautiful." And I said, "That's what we're training to, is that light."
That just sounds so awesome. I'm gonna ask 2 more questions before we wrap up. First of all, let me say thanks for coming on and sharing your story. I can see when we first started, it brought a lot of memories back. I didn't mean to open up old.
No, that's good, because that makes me feel even deeper within my soul that I did well.
Yeah.
When you really accept that, I mean, that's not painful anymore. That's truth. That's blessing.
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned the domestic part of your life. Your husband is now passed. Has he ever contacted you? Have you ever
Yes.
contacted him?
Yes.
Some people might think that sounds kind of stupid.
No, the church people will, because it scares them that you should be talking about dead people. Well, dead people come into my house all the time and leave me messages so I can call them. So I live that way. I'm not a medium. I'm a transformational consultant. And this is why I say that because I got sued in Illinois for practicing without a license because I was doing such a job. And I was told 3 years prior, God said, "Go get a license on the internet to give you a ministry license for $5 over the internet." And I did it. And my lawyer said, "I can't believe it. They've got to serve it." And I did not get sued. But if you don't listen to God, because I could have said, "What's the matter with you?" No, I listened. I've listened to everything since the last 25 years because I know that's the truth. That higher conscious voice will get you where you need to be. All you have to do is stop and listen.
What do you think? How do you say you forgave your husband? Did he come to you for forgiveness? And more importantly, because of the abuse, maybe he was traumatized.
He was.
Previous life and didn't recognize it and repeated it the same thing. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I didn't know that there was something wrong with him. I mean, I was sexually abused, but I wasn't penetrated at the first time at the 7. I saw a man with his penis and it was shocking because that's how they do it. They shock you first. And then Ron, when he's tried to connect with me. Now, just a year ago, October the 3rd, 2022, I had a massive heart attack because I was so mad at my ex-husband after he died, because he really did take my sons away from me. He made them hate me even more. And it hurt me, and he hurt me bad. And the things he did was just horrible things. He never hit me, but he destroyed me with everything. I mean, friends, he wrote letters to my family. They thought I was crazy. I mean, it was just ugly, ugly, ugly. But what I had to do is I had to go and have that heart attack. I had to get mad enough because I've been doing it for 25 years and just saying, no, I'm okay. No, I wasn't okay. It wasn't. And I had to really acknowledge that. And I took the risk of having that heart attack, but I was out in less than 24 hours because I knew exactly what I'd done. And I said, I'll be out. And I was. I just had a blockage, literally. But what I've learned in all of this is, and I'm still mad at him. I'm not going to say, I'm still got the flesh. And he's tried to come down a couple of times. And I said, you still need to be a God. You need to still be there. And you got a lot of work to think about what you've done here. Because he had such an opportunity. Now, why my ex-husband, it was the way he was molested by a priest. Now, I did not know that for 27 years of my marriage. I'm a psychiatric social worker by degree, and I worked with sexual abuse and child abuse. And I thought, oh my, and I was on the toilet. Now, this is honestly true. I was on the toilet, and I was just trying to catch up with all of this. I just had that near-death experience. I think it had been a year. And I'm sitting there, and this priest comes in through my bathroom door, and he went through the door. He didn't go in it. And I just stared at him. I knew the man, that's who he was, because I saw pictures of him. He was dead by the time I got into that family. And he turned around and looked at me, and he said, I can't move on because Ron hasn't forgiven me. And I went, who are you? And this is all through telepathic. Okay. This is all telepathic. Mm-hmm. And I said, but you can no. I said, and then because I'd already had God experience and Jesus. I said, no. You're going to have to forgive yourself because you're going to have to face God. And what's the worst that you've ever done is you have served God and then did it incorrectly and harmed other people. And I didn't, and he wanted me to tell Ron to forgive him. Well, at that time, we were going through such a bad time. They all thought I was crazy because I was talking to the grass, I was talking to the flowers, and they were talking, Andre. They were talking. The world is alive, but we've been so programmed not to see it. That's called frequency, okay? So I was in a different frequency, different dimension. I don't care but I was there, and I could see them over here, and they weren't in the same place. I call it flat. So when I told him, I said, I'm not going to do that. And then the next week, after I had my heart attack, I couldn't look at the newspaper. I could not look at the news. I could not look at electricity around me because it affected me. I mean, I was really isolating myself, almost in a Faraday box, because I felt everything. I could feel you when somebody first walked in, I could feel everything about them, what they'd done. I mean, it was almost scary. And I thought, I'm not going to get involved in this because they always think I'm crazy. I went and picked up the newspaper, which I never do, went into the bathroom on a Sunday morning because it was a Sunday paper, opened it up, and my eyes took me straight down this page. And I mean, I just opened it up, okay? This is why I know it's God. And it took me to this little bitty advertisement. 2 priests being sued for child abuse. And it was him and another priest. And I went, oh my God. I folded it in the paper and I walked out, handed it to my husband at the time. And I remember he went into a trance. And I listened and I thought, and he went straight to the computer room, came back 30 minutes later, handed me 5 pages of information of what he'd done or what happened to him. And I went, oh my God. I said, it happened. It really happened. That's when we got involved with the lawyer and we sued the Catholic Church in Louisville, Kentucky, and we won. And we won. We were the first lawsuit that's ever been sued the Catholic Church, and we won. Wow. And then it took me to another journey. I have gone after the Catholic Church for all the things they've done for the children and what they've done. So this is my mission, is to stop people that are saying they're serving God and they're liars, they're cheaters, they're not doing what they said.
So why can't he cross over? the priest, just out of curiosity?
Well, he has some work to do. I don't know for sure that he hasn't crossed over because I haven't seen him anymore. And
When
it
you
might
say
be
when you
that
say he had some work to do, that's
yeah,
kind of,
well,
I know we're going off. I know we're going a little bit over, but I got to ask these questions.
you got to ask him.
So he comes to you, the entity, the priest that committed these crimes to your husband.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a rule to get in and to be able to cross over?
No, not
So I thought
no,
because he's not being judged.
It's not a closed gated group. You have the gate is always there because I almost died when I was only 11 years old, and I saw the gate, the pearly gates, and it opened up, but it closed me and said, "Not your time." See, that's why I said I've had these experiences. But with this, I used to be with a group of people. I don't know who they're not people, they're souls. And we would go, we called it the dark woods. And we would see souls stuck in this, and they would hide because they were shamed, they were guilt ridden, they didn't feel like God would receive them. So the gate of the great pearly gates that you hear was closed to them, not by God, by them.
I think I get it.
God would never hold you back.
They were holding themselves back.
That's exactly. So we would go, and I know that sounds crazy, but I can give you a lot of things. I've worked with this group before. I don't know who they are, but we would go in, and we could go into the forest, but we stood outside. You can come out. Don't be so shameful. It's okay.
So is that what is called repent?
It would be forgiveness of self.
Yeah, that's what I get when I say forgiveness of self.
Forgiveness of self, because God already knew who you were. God knew that you were a child of God. You're an innocence of God. You got piled in with all the information on this lower dimension and forgotten who you were. You're just an innocent. When Jesus Christ said, "Bring me the children," he's talking about us, all of us. We're children here. We are innocents way beyond until we get tainted. And then we start judging ourselves and others. And the next thing you know, you've gone into a lower frequency, and that's why you're sick. That's why everything is happening to you.
So the Garden of Eden
is right here in your mind.
Basically, I'm just hypothetically thinking this. Maybe the tree of knowledge was when we started judging each other.
Oh, two trees: tree of life, tree of knowledge. Tree of knowledge is just knowledge, information. And this is why everybody's running on their logic self. That's on their left side of their brain. That's all they do is this. They cannot see the creation. They can't see anything else because they can't arc it over. You got to have both of them. You can't let one go. You got to bring them in to bring in the knowledge and the life to get the wisdom. That's why we call it the narrow road.
You're too deep. You know what? How can the viewers reach out to you and be a part of this beautiful journey that you're trying to create for everyone?
It's going to be the Divine Kingdom, and it's or tell them they can look up Virginia Drake and look at my website, or they can call me on my email. It's revisions, REVISIONS 111 at Roadrunner, ROADRUNNER.com. Now, the thing is, if you're ready to do this work, and there is work, and on my website, there are 2 videos. You need to go in and see those 2 videos. I'm not going to be talking to anybody because I am booked. I'm booked. I mean, 4,000 emails, and they're still coming in. So I want everybody go in.
You put the work on you, Virginia, if you couldn't do it.
Well, it's a lot of work. Now I'm 72 years old. So, I was retiring before I jazzed up with God, and then I opened it up. But It doesn't matter. God, I said to God a long time ago, I stood in this living room on Angel Avenue, and I raised my hands and I said, it's time for me to speak for you. And the next week I had my first motivational speaking, job, $1,000. Now you can't make that up. That's when I said, I raised my hand in praise and said, that's ready to speak for you. Well, now God said, I've been under the radar for 15 years because I didn't want to have, I've got clients all over the world. And now I've got clients all over the world, every island, I think. But I know God has brought me in here to tell this truth. And I'm going to stay in it until it's done.
Leave the viewers with something special.
The most important thing I could tell anybody is to be honest with themselves. But I'm talking about the depth of honesty, because most people are not honest with themselves. They're lying to themselves. There's the big lies when you're lying to yourself. No, that didn't happen. You already know inside, yes and no. You know right and wrong. I don't care what anybody says. You can go to every psychiatrist. You can go, but you already know inside what you've done. Now, go in and forgive yourself and find out why you did it so you don't do it again. That's the lessons here. This is called the soul lessons down here.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the one, the only, the enlightenment herself, Virginia Drake, on the Andre the Beast Crayton show.